May 1st, 2006. This is Diehard Gamer Radio, Episode 6.
You are listening to Diehard Gamer Radio, the source for off-mainstream video game news and topics. Now your hosts, Murdock, Brian, and John.
Well, thank you for joining us for another Diehard Gamer Radio. I am one of your hosts, Murdock, and as always, I am joined by Brian and John.
That would be us.
How are you guys doing today?
Well, how should we be doing? Is that a trick question?
I think he's trying to trap us.
I refuse to answer the question. I plead the fifth.
It's a trap!
I saw this movie.
Yeah. Okay,
What committee are you with?
Enough of that.
Damn it, Senator, I refuse. No.
Was trying to do a little small talk here, but nope, didn't work. A little idiotic
small about
banter. Was going to check with the chopper, but okay. How's traffic out there today? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, as we do in every show, is we're going to talk about the corrections and apologies from the last show, and we didn't really have too many from the 5th episode, but we did have one from the 4th episode, and this was regarding the UMD format. And we just want to clarify that the UMD format is actually, what is it, John? It's close to...
It's full DVD resolution, actually, as we were helpfully informed by one of our listeners.
Thank you. Okay.
We have listeners!
Yay!
So, Keegan, thank you very much for pointing that out to us.
In my defense, though, there is no device you can buy that can actually play them at that resolution.
Okay. So, now that we've done that, we're going to go straight into our news bits. And the first one is the big one. The Nintendo Revolution was renamed the Nintendo Wii.
And we think it sucks.
So, what do we think on the name?
That's a really bad idea, man. Seriously. If you're going to name your console something, at least pick a word that's not already one of the most common words in the English language, please.
I think there was some Scotsman.
It's also
the system.
French.
Yeah.
Wee wee. What are you doing? I'm playing my wee wee. Don't play with that. That's nasty.
What do you call this wee little system?
This wee little system.
So,
yeah, you walk into the game store and go, we would like a Wii for us to play with. What are you going to do with the Wii?
We're going to all the way home.
Yeah. So, yeah, the name came as quite of a
shock.
Yeah.
Shock's
Shock is
definitely a
about
good word.
the best word we can give.
Damn
for
it, where's
this.
my thesaurus?
So, I don't know if this was a brilliant marketing strategy or
Brilliant like a fox.
or what. We don't know.
Brilliant like a plumber, maybe.
About as subtle, too.
Yeah.
I feel like I got hit with a pipe wrench.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Moving along.
Yeah.
Well, there's currently also, should mention, the rumor that's floating around right now that this isn't the real name that Nintendo is going to use, that they're going to pull a bait and switch on us, which some people are saying because you can't currently find a registered copyright for Wii by Nintendo. But seriously, that's just because it hasn't gotten updated on the webpage yet. Nintendo of America has officially said, yes, we've filed all our copyright notices.
Some people are just in denial. They don't want to play with a Wii.
Stage 1 is denial. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's hope the games don't suck on the Wii. That sentence didn't come out quite how I wanted it to.
Man, stop with the puns or we'll never get off this topic.
Yeah. So our next news bit actually is price drop for the Xbox 360, and not a big surprise. What do you think the price is going to be for this?
If it drops, it'll drop when the PS3 releases, and then any drop will probably be dependent on what the PS3 price is.
I'll wager about $50, and that's it.
Yeah, this is Microsoft.
That's probably both core and with the hard drive. So
okay,
that first drop is never a big one. It's always like 20, 30, but I mean we're talking a larger amount, so maybe $50.
Okay.
I doubt we'll actually see it until 2007 when they actually get that die shrink on the processor. Because that's probably going to be the first real engineering modification that'll let them drop the price.
Yeah, and they're going to lose money continually anyway, so if they drop the price there, they're just going to lose less money probably.
Yeah.
Our next news bit is SNK versus Capcom Card Fighter coming out on the Nintendo DS.
Yeah, boy!
And this is currently just a rumor right now, but with the dual screen technology, this should make it for an interesting card fighter.
Just want to say,
playing 2-player on it.
I just want to say, SNK in the hizzos!
Is that the one you always play on the Pocket Color?
Oh yeah, Clash.
That's
just
such an
awesome game. Well, both of them, yeah.
Yeah,
the
Brian
Capcom
and I,
version
like,
and the
played
SNK
the hell out
version.
of that game.
Oh man, I'm still playing the Capcom version or SNK version because I completed the Capcom one first. There's just so many cards on there, and there's so many ways to battle, and it's a great basic card game that is not too complex and is always fun to play.
I haven't met a collectible card game I don't like.
Yeah, some are a little more complex, but on a portable system on the go, it's a great game. Great games.
Our next news bit is that Phantasy Star Universe is coming out on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, and PC fall 2006.
So that means it's like on everything except the original Atari now, right?
That was supposed to come out last Christmas, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and got delayed for whatever reason.
Yeah, but I mean, there's like a Phantasy Star on every system I own, practically.
Well,
it's amazing.
Except it's not really Phantasy Star. It's Phantasy Star Online again and
yeah,
again.
That's what I
and
mean,
again.
though. It's the original online just over and over. Hey, there's a new system. You know what? We need a Phantasy Star on there. Yeah.
Actually, Phantasy Star Online was one of the few MMORPGs that I really, really liked. And it's not really an MMORPG.
It's not at all. It's basically Diablo.
Yeah. But the fact that you could play by yourself and not be online and then, continue online with all your built-up characters was
back
real
on the
nice.
old Dreamcast.
Although that was actually a bad decision on their part.
Why do you say
because it let people hack the save files. Since all the data wasn't stored on the server, people could cheat, get whatever they wanted to, and then take it online.
Yeah.
Which really, unfortunately, is just
small oversight.
Well,
too
it's
open
also
for
just
abuse.
the nature of the beast. What are you going to do?
Well, you're going to make it so when you play online, you're only playing online. All the data's on the server, and people can't do that shit.
Yeah. So, next news bit is SNK Playmore rumored to be working on Nintendo DS version of King of Fighters.
How many buttons does King of Fighters need?
4.
Oh, so
Well,
actually
technically it uses 4 in the arcade, but the Pocket does it with 2. And it's pretty unique because it just depends on how heavy you press the button down.
Oh, man, I've never liked when they do that.
Yeah,
It's hard to get used to at first, but if you play it long enough, you understand it and you appreciate the fact they're able to utilize 2 buttons out of 4.
And I just start getting excited and start pressing all the buttons hard.
So, yeah, you...
God, I gotta start doing a light attack.
Who uses light attacks?
Not John, apparently.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah.
Put it in the happy portable box.
What's a combo? Why would I need to start with light? What are you talking about? Our next news bit is that Sony is dropping their PS2 price to $129. You save yourself $20.
If you haven't bought one yet, hey.
You haven't bought one yet, you're probably in a closet.
Yeah.
And your name might be Steve.
Our next news bit is that Final Fantasy V Advance for the Game Boy Advance will feature new jobs and dungeons. And what Square is doing is that they're re-releasing Final Fantasies 4, 5, and 6. And they're going to add new dungeons and all sorts of new content along with it. But in the end, Square's just letting
Milking the cow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Sucking on the teat there.
Squeezing blood out of the udder.
yeah, so not a big surprise there.
Well, it's good for people that never played them originally. I mean, that's nice.
That
That's
is true, and
beauty
also
of the portable
Final
formats.
Fantasy V was one of the Final Fantasies that did not come out originally on the Super Nintendo. It was actually first released in this country as one of the Final Fantasy anthologies for the PlayStation.
If they want to keep this up, though, now, I mean, they never have to make an original Final Fantasy again. They just need to remake Final Fantasy 1 in all 3D with glitz for the PS3 and start from there. And by the time they're done, they can start remaking it all again.
Lord knows some of the newer ones have sucked pretty hard. So maybe going back to the old original standbys is not a bad idea.
Yeah. So our next news bit is that Xbox Live is going to be free during E3. So for those of you who can't make it to the convention, you can play with your friends online.
Hey, if Cinemax can do a free weekend, Xbox Live can do a free weekend.
Hey, I'm all for it.
The Xbox Live is probably going to be a little bit more entertaining.
I just wish I could have coordinated this like 3 months ago, so I could have had to end the payment at that point and then start up again the week after. Milk that for every hour there.
Yeah, but Xbox Live has less softcore porn.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, it's got more snotty 9-year-olds.
Yeah. Give me some chocolate milk, Mom! Next, we have Electronic Arts settles overtime class action lawsuit and promises changes. Now, for a little background on this, there was a worker over at EA, and they were being worked to death, and the spouse of this worker actually posted in a live journal about all the crappy things that EA was doing, and she got a lot of response. Well, about a year later, they settled the overtime class action lawsuit, and they promised changes within their organization.
Just like a good corporation would.
Yeah. So I think it was, the tune of, $2 million or something like that?
I'm not sure what the settlement was.
We're not sure what the final settlement was, but it was a pretty good chunk of change. So hopefully Electronic Arts will... Nah, they won't stop being jerks.
No, they'll probably just move their production offshore.
Yeah.
Outsource it.
Well, and the thing about this lawsuit, too, was that there was, I think they were misclassifying some of their employees to avoid having to pay them overtime. So there actually was a real issue there that they, besides just making them work 80 hours a week, they actually had some legal problems.
That would explain why they didn't settle but had to go the whole route.
Okay.
No, yeah, I guess you're... Yeah, no, they did settle. Well, that... Generally, when you settle, that's pretty much...
We're guilty!
Yeah. But we did nothing.
Yeah. So, next news bit, Every Extend Extra, Luminous 2, and Luminous Plus are all coming out. Every Extend Extra and Luminous 2 being on the PlayStation Portable, and then Luminous Plus being on the PlayStation 2.
And, hey, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm real excited about that, although I'm not quite sure what they can do to Luminous to warrant a sequel other than change the music.
I'm more excited about it Every Extend, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was a great shower.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Luminous is one of the best puzzle games to come out in the last decade.
Oh, yeah.
So...
yeah, it was fun.
So we'll see if they add anything interesting to it.
Even if they don't, man, a new set of puzzles, another 50 backgrounds, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Pretty much is the modern-day Tetris.
So, next, the DS Lite, scheduled for June release, and pre-orders are starting. And if you go to the Nintendo of America website, there are actually background images of the Nintendo DS that's just used for background graphics, and they haven't officially announced anything about the DS in the United States, but coming this Thursday, which would be the 4th, Nintendo of America is actually going to be doing an official press conference on the Nintendo DS American launch and what the price point will be.
Well, that'll be exciting.
Nice.
We'll finally have one we can play outdoors.
So, in other words, it's going to come out right around E3.
Oh, well, that's a shock.
Yeah. Big shock there. Next, the PlayStation 3 is rumored to be launched early November for $399. Which
can I put
the keyword there is rumor?
Yeah. Rumored.
The password is rumor.
So maybe Sony might get their act together by November?
Or maybe every analyst in the world will continue to spout bullshit
and
for
get
another
paid for
6
it.
months.
Oh, yeah, the PlayStation now has Hamsters. Let's go with that.
Yeah, and you can put little like rocks of meth in the top to get better graphics performance.
Yeah.
No, the robotic hamsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks to Sony.
Yeah, Sony hamsters. That break
They're
down
cousins of the Aibo.
Yeah, maybe if they thought to include a feeding slot for the hamsters, they wouldn't have that problem.
Yeah. So join us next week for Hamstercast, Diehard Hamster Radio.
In very small voices.
Yeah. We have the technology.
Rebuild him higher, squeakier, more annoying.
Next, our next news bit is a Loco Roco demo available. And John, can you explain to our listeners what Loco Roco is?
Yeah, it's well. First off, it's a little tricky to get, just so you know. You need to upgrade your PSP to firmware revision 2.7. For all those people out there running emulators and such, this isn't cracked yet, so be warned. And then you have to find one of the mirrors available for it, and it is all in Japanese. Fortunately, it's a very simple game. It's got an art style that the Beatles would have liked, which is one of its strong points. But basically, you are a planet, and you want to save the poor defenseless Loco Rocos. And you do this by tilting the world to the right and left. And you can also drop down to sort of make the Loco Rocos jump and also cause them to split and reform. And what you're trying to do is get them through the level with this kind of marble madness sort of thing, except it's all 2D, and the puzzles are basically physics-based. Has a really infectious soundtrack to it. This thing looks weird and really cool.
And dare we say it's the next Katamari Damacy.
Yeah, it really looks great. I got a chance to check it out, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to have to buy that.
Yeah, the demo was just uber fun.
Katamari Damacy is a good comparison to make because, again, it's got a totally unique art style. It's got this great soundtrack that's just bizarre.
And this one actually didn't come from the Japanese,
well,
which is rather interesting.
And maybe it didn't come from a guy who hates video games is another bonus.
Yeah.
Hey, it takes some real eccentrics out there to come up with this stuff, so I'll give them props.
Yeah, speaking about a guy that doesn't play video games, and this is just a little off topic. Actually, I'm referring to Beat Takeshi. Takeshi Kitano. And he created a video game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And when you start up the game, it actually says in Japanese, this is created by a guy that hates video games and doesn't know anything about video games. And all the mini games in it are like so masochistic, it's not even funny. Some of them are like, hit the A button 20,000 times. There's a few other just bizarre games.
Goes right along with this game show.
Yeah, there's a shooter in there where your ship cannot move up; it can only move down. So, you start kind of in the middle of the screen, and you can only move down. You can't move up. So
there's no way to win.
Actually, there is a video, and I will show it to you, of some poor Japanese guy that got this game and played it all the way through, and then he
killed himself.
No. When he finished it, he just had this look of just utter despair, like his soul was gone.
I wasted how much time on this?
I hope he had an auto fire for that 20,000 bit, man.
Yeah, it was something really
this is
bizarre.
the NES, remember?
Yeah,
I've seen auto fire controllers for the NES, man.
They didn't come out for a long time, though.
The Advantage took a while to come out. But moving on, our last news bit is a Night sequel for the Nintendo Wii. So rumor has it that Nights may come out on the Nintendo Wii or the Revolution or whatever you want to call the system. So I personally would love to see a sequel to Nights.
Yeah, definitely.
And, it makes a lot of sense because the original Nights came out and introduced the analog stick to the world. So having Nights come out on a system that's also giving us a new control scheme, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Kind of unique.
So now that we're done with our news bits, we're going to go right into our Famitsu scores. So we only have 1 week of scores, and we're going to start off for the week of April 20th, 2006. We have Dragon Quest Shonen Yangus for the PlayStation 2, got a 35 out of 40, and this is kind of a side story of Dragon Quest 8, where you play as a young Yangus going through dungeons. It looked kind of interesting, but 35.
Does he come from the beef family?
No.
Have we mentioned the milking the cash cow thing?
Well, this is nothing new for Dragon Quest.
Yeah, just saying.
Okay. Next score is King of Fighters Maximum Impact 2 for the PlayStation 2. Got a 29 out of 40. And never been real impressed with the Maximum Impact series, but I'm not real excited.
It's hard
about
to make
3D.
that jump to 3D. Yeah. It's getting better, but yeah, I don't think this port was that great. No.
Yeah. Next we have Winning 11-10, which is the soccer game. Got all 9s, 36 out of 40 for the PlayStation 2. So if you like soccer games,
this is your game.
I think I'm going to hold out for Winning 11-11.
Yeah.
Just because the title will be funnier.
Yes. But I read a little bit on the game, and I don't particularly care for sports games, but it looked pretty interesting, and 350 teams.
Wow.
But
That's
no
like
soccer
every team.
So.
So we need like an outlaw soccer game where we can have all the hooligans jump down and beat the players to death.
Yeah.
Drunken Irish and Scots and Brits just...
Our next Famitsu score is 2006 FIFA World Cup for the Xbox 360. Got 34 out of 40. So...
Apparently, if you want a soccer game, play the other one.
Yeah. Although the EA Sports games have actually been doing pretty well in Famitsu. That's the scary part.
They look really good. I mean, that's definitely the first step.
Next, we have Izumo 2 for the PlayStation 2. Got a 23 out of 40. Not great. So, next we have Naruto Saikyo Ninja Daikesho 4. 22 out of 40. So, another anime game, another lousy score.
Yeah, a licensed game that sucks. Stop the surprises here.
Continuing the history of sucky licensed games our world around.
And our last Famitsu score for the week is Tetris DS for the Nintendo DS. Got a 35 out of 40, which is really good for
bringing Tetris to a new generation.
Yeah, I mean, goddamn. This can't be the first time those people have played Tetris here.
I got to admit, though, it would be kind of cool to see it drop from the top screen and go all the way to the bottom. I mean, that's the one unique use of two screens.
Actually, there is a mode in Tetris DS that kind of does that.
Is that push one where it pushes it back and forth?
No, there's actually another one. There's a touch mode where you actually touch the pieces and rotate them and slide them along.
Yeah, but that's
not good on the hands.
Yeah, but...
And
well,
actually,
I'm just letting you know.
Pushing carpal tunnel.
And it would seem like it'd be kind of hard to aim the drop all the way down across two screens with that gap and everything.
Yeah,
well, it's just something you'd have to play. But I like the game. But
well, they made Metroid Pinball work.
It's Tetris.
So.
I mean, it's not going to suck or anything. It's just we played that two decades ago.
We know what the game is. It's like our expectations are not going to change.
All right, so we're going to go right into our game topics, and our first game topic is when did we start taking gaming so seriously? Now, over at our good friends at Next Generation, they were talking about an Xbox 360 review for Fight Night Round 3, and the person who wrote the article, Francesca Reyes, when she gave it a perfect score, basically the floodgates opened, and for lack of a better word, she got flamed. So I want to ask my two co-hosts, when did we start taking games so seriously? And this is not the first.
I think it's back when blogs started.
Yeah.
As soon as people could post on the interweb.
Yeah.
So since the 1960s, right?
Well, man, don't you remember, the Gay Station 2 and the Suckbox? And
hey, we didn't start the fire.
I mean, seriously, people have been flaming about this crap for ages. And even now, somebody
It's
goes
just
on there
been
and some
made
high-profile title gets delayed, and like the people who like the other system better go on there to gloat. It's like, what the fuck?
Fanboys the world over. You know,
But does it seem like that people are taking gaming just way too seriously, and just everything is just a huge big deal, and oh my god, it's got a perfect score, what's going on?
no, I think it's just people have too much free time, and it's too easy to post your opinions now.
You
Too
remember
easy
how
to get that across.
worked up we got about the perfect score that we saw last?
Oh, for Final Fantasy 12?
The 10 out of 10, yeah. Or 40 out of 40, wasn't
40
it?
out of 40. Well, yeah, but Famitsu scores have always been ones that have gotten a lot of controversy ever since Famitsu's been around, and that's nothing new.
It's the same for any magazine out there or any publication that reviews.
Well,
I mean, they're always going to be
people
somewhat...
always seem to put Famitsu at a higher pedestal than, say, EGM or any other magazine, which...
That's because they respect them.
Well, I don't know if it's a respect issue, though. I mean, why do people decide that, hey, Famitsu's is a lot better than, say, EGM? Or is it just another one of these cases where they figure, well, it's Japanese, so it's got to be better than anything Americans make?
For a little bit of background on this, for why this particular thing with the magazine is just a total non-issue, is because it got a 10 out of 10 because they moved to a new reviewing system. Instead of before where they reviewed everything as a point number so they could have like a 6.6 or whatever, they moved to a 20-step system instead, so that it would go 9, 9.5, 10. So, whereas before they had a number of games, and people were even comparing them to this, they had like a 9.6 or 9.7, all of those games would now be perfect 10s.
Yeah.
So,
it really is just much ado about nothing.
Yeah. So, all you guys out there who are taking gaming way too seriously, you need to chill the fuck out.
well, and seriously, I mean, you see that
Yo.
every time a new system comes out, somebody goes up and they saves up, and they buy one of these new systems for like $500, and then they feel obligated to defend it and say it's the coolest thing ever and is much better than that other system that they couldn't afford.
Well, it's better than saying I'm an idiot because I just bought a system that doesn't have any great games on it.
Well, it's not even being an idiot. It's just like they can
They're just
only
trying to
afford one,
validate
so
their
they feel
purchase.
obligated to become
it's
invested
validation.
in the brand.
Yeah.
It's
How do you think fanboys were born?
the psychological term is cognitive dissonance.
So, in the end, I mean, since the advent of internet and blogs and chat rooms, people just feel that they need to spout off their opinion whenever they feel like it, and
It's just gotten easier to do so too, and
Yeah, I mean, some people even like record it and put it up on the internet. Who the hell want to listen to that crap?
Yeah,
freaking podcasts.
yeah, I hate those things.
Damn dirty podcast.
Oh. So, next topic, and this one's kind of an interesting topic. We want to talk a little bit about new games journalism. Now, before I begin, we need to discuss what new games journalism actually is. Now, it's a movement of reviewing video games and using more, I guess, interpersonal...
Or anecdotes.
Anecdotes and interpersonal things within it to create more, I guess, of a feeling of a game or more of an experience of the game as a whole and how it relates to you, as opposed to just straight reviewing the game. What I did was I gave examples of new games journalism to my two co-hosts, and they had a chance to read some of the examples. So any opinions on this new movement of games journalism?
Well, it's not that new. I mean, some
Well,
of those
that's
articles we've seen before and are like 10 years old now. And the whole new journalism thing that it's based on is actually much older than that. But Wikipedia has some excellent articles on the history that'll give some background on the idea. The idea is definitely interesting, but I'm not sure that you can really call them game reviews, because in a lot of cases it seems like they're really literature. They're talking about people, and they're talking about how people interact, and they're just using games as a vocabulary to do that. and they're really just good writing.
Yeah, it's talking
Well,
through
most
the
of
game.
it's good writing. Not
Well,
all.
Well, there's always going to be something bad. Yeah,
But when I see
the good examples of it are good writing.
see my opinion of new games journalism, I found it just very pretentious and boring.
well, most of it maybe, and they definitely stretch. I mean, if somebody's going to look for a game review, yeah, this is not your thing because it's going to stretch it out to 5 times longer than you're really looking for.
Yeah,
and
but
do you really need to know personal things about the writer? Well,
but who is it for?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's not so much a game review thing. The only place where I see it really works as a review tool is when you're talking about, say, massively multiplayer games or multiplayer games in general, because since it brings more emotion and it can talk about the game community as opposed to the game itself, that it can actually give you a different perspective on it. And as a review tool, I think it actually sucks, because there was one of them you posted that was for Prince of Persia. And I got like 3 paragraphs in and have already seen 2 major spoilers. I haven't played the game yet. Yeah, I'm bad. But my problem with that is that for this style of talking about the experience of playing the game, you really can't do that in a spoiler-free manner.
I think it is more talking about the experience itself, not necessarily the game, because one of the articles I read was talking about a guy that was talking about a Jedi game and how the newest incarnation of the game had taken out simple little things that kind of made the game what it was, really. It made it more original, more appropriate. And it was such things as before, going on a duel one-on-one with lightsabers, you would bow to your opponent as a sign of respect and in thanks for the duel that you're about to encounter, And I mean, it was just, they took the bow out. And he thought it was kind of a personal thing. And even though he thought it was stupid originally, once he noticed everybody was doing it, he realized, yeah, it kind of is cool, and I guess it is kind of a necessity in the game, and now this newest incarnation takes it out, and that kind of offended him, I mean, it's simple little things like that. It's just putting the personal touch in there. It's not necessarily a review. It's just more opinion of how he felt the game should be, or what he got out of the game originally, and now the new game is different, I mean, it's not really a review.
So we're looking at more of an experience of the game and how the person who had played the game felt, or what type of emotions.
It's not necessarily reviewing the game, but reviewing the experience, I think, more.
Maybe another way to put it is it isn't really about games, it's about gaming.
Yeah, that's a good way to go. I agree.
And now, one of my major gripes with it is I have yet to find the type of audience this would be for. And for me, who has always been more of the type of person that I'm very much into just the reviews because I just want to know, hey, does the game suck or is it cool?
Well, I mean, who are blogs for,
This isn't something you go to for information about the game, I don't think. If you want to find out if this is a game you should buy, this is not what you go for. This isn't going to help you make that decision.
It's more like a blog in a lot of ways. It's just a personal feeling about something, your thoughts on it, your emotions, what you did, what you didn't do.
It's entertainment. Just to read it.
I think it's just simple entertainment. It's like reading a magazine.
Yeah.
You pick it up, you read some articles about something, and that's just what you read what the guy felt about what he did or what he thought or where he traveled.
It's
just an experience.
There's a comic I'm going to have to show you that does a parody of new games journalism, and in it a woman is reading a new games journalism article, and there's just lines and lines of text, and she finally says references to Kierkegaard, and it's over 700 words in length. This has got to be the most pretentious Pong review I've ever read. He's like, I'm a new games journalist!
Which is pretty funny. But, I mean, honestly, for those articles you read, I mean, one of the reasons I read through them all is because I was enjoying it. I actually like them. So, and I'm not sure what audience they're aimed at, but I can see why people would write them, and I can understand people reading them.
It may just be another form of creative writing, really.
Oh.
I don't know.
So using a game to explain why your life sucks.
Or, just to explain some facet of the human condition.
While playing Zelda, I realized that I hadn't bathed in a while, and just goes from there. Our next topic is is the ESRB, the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, doing a good enough job? Now, as you probably already know, there's been about a hojillion reports on violence in games and politicians trying to control content and making laws to control what types of games get sold to minors. But my question to
it's the 60s all over again.
Is do you think the ESRB is doing a good enough job with the rating of video games?
This isn't about hot coffee, is it?
No.
Good, because I don't even want to talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
Coffee's done gone cold.
But do you think they're doing a good enough job with the actual rating of games and how they're informing consumers of these ratings?
Yeah, they put a big fucking letter on there that tells you what's in the game.
Well, that doesn't mean anyone pays attention to it.
Well, they go in, they figure out what's in there, they tell you what it is on the box. If you're too goddamn lazy to read the thing, how is that the ESRB's fault?
It's right below the little section that tells you how many players, what kind of control you need, is it online? I mean, it's part of the packaging.
And the thing that has been noticed a lot is if you look at the back of the box of a standard video game and you look at the ESRB and the content descriptors, they're actually pretty big and pretty real easy to read, and they're easy to spot.
Right, black and white.
But if you look at a movie or look at a DVD and you look at the rating, it's real small, real tiny, sometimes hard to spot, and people don't complain about that.
And generally 5 times more sexual and violent.
Well, it's not even as descriptive. You get an R on the movie, you don't know what that R is for. Is it for language? Is it for sex? Is it for drugs? Is it for violence?
They do have content descriptors for MPAA ratings, but, I mean, on some DVDs, I mean, the rating is just so small, and it's located in the tiny text of all the copyright mumbo-jumbo, that unless you knew what the movie was ahead of time,
I think they just got the right lobbyists.
Well, it's because movies have already gone through this.
Yeah, it's the newest thing to pick on, and so we're going to slam gaming.
It may be, and this may be a stupid question, but do you think it might be part of the reason maybe that you can't really interact with movies as much as you say a game, because you can't just be passive in a game. You actually have to do something to make the game do what you want to do.
You control.
This is old people who haven't gamed going, oh my god, this is corrupting the youth of America. For the children! I mean,
yeah, God
seriously.
forbid violence and sex on TV, because that's doing nothing to them.
Or it could have been D&D, or it could have been The Waltz. I mean, seriously, this has been
It's
said.
ecstasy!
Every 20 years, we get something else that's destroying the youth of wherever.
It's the 60s all over
And
again.
of course, children
the new fad to
and the
pick
youth
on.
are going around going, "What the fuck is wrong with these adults? What's going on?"
Well,
Yeah,
and
chill.
I'm kind of pissed because I am an adult, and I mean, they're getting ready to censor all of this stuff, and I don't want them to make it harder for me to buy the games I want to play. And
Yeah.
it seems like they really want to lock this down. The real problem with this, when they go and try and enforce it and do these draconian penalties for going, over the ratings or try and lock the ratings to a specific period in time, is it's got a chilling effect. It's like the Comics Code Authority. It, ruined an entire genre of entertainment for, 50 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think, back on subject, the ESRB is doing a really good job, but parents are going to have to do a better job and actually pay attention to what the hell
in
they're
the
buying.
end, it comes down to the parent. That's the last line of defense. Enough said. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, the people get all excited about this, that, oh my god, a 12-year-old could go in and buy GTA. I bet a 12-year-old could go out and buy Natural Born Killers. I mean,
What is going to
seriously.
be more destructive? Yeah.
I mean, the whole, watching an R movie thing, it's obviously not destroyed the youth of America yet.
I saw Jaws when I was a kid. I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ESRB doing a great job. Parents, you guys need work.
Or at least parents need to take responsibility. Unfortunately, the same parents that
Yeah,
complain
what
about
country
it
are you living in?
are the same ones that are never going to take responsibility for any of this.
Yeah.
My nanny should have been so watching over him.
Yeah, I'm over here frothing at the mouth, people.
Yeah. So next we want to talk a little about episodic gaming and what we think about it. And we got a
Is this
heavy
just one,
side from
Is this just
John
one episode here?
Yeah. And why the heavy sigh, John?
Well, it's actually because I was still thinking about the ESRB and stupid parents.
So
it makes me hurt deep inside.
Hurts right here.
And Brian points to something that no one can see.
It was my heart, trust me.
I will take your word for it. For those who may not understand what episodic gaming is, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. They'll release a game, and then every couple of months they'll release a new episode to this game.
Hack.
Yeah.
Hack.
And sometimes this episode is like a mission. Sometimes it's several missions. And they're supposed to release it on a regular basis and charge lots of money for this episodic content. So what do we think about episodic gaming?
This is
I think
nothing
you're
new.
misrepresenting a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, you're saying lots of money. I mean,
Well, that's
Now,
extreme.
This is nothing new. It's the PC generation has been doing this for a long time. They're just add-ons or expansions you buy that add to the game. But in this case, I'm assuming they're going to be separate games you can play by themselves. That's probably the only difference.
That we're looking at right now are going to be the Half-Life stuff that they're doing, and the whole Sin game, which is going to be entirely episodic content. And both of these are being released over Steam, which is what's making this possible to do that. And to give you an idea of context, I think for Sin, they're talking about the first episode is going to be 7 or 8 hours of gameplay for like $10.
Yeah, and that's reasonable. I mean, I would pay that. I'd be much more happy to pay that and have expansions come out that way than to have to buy a whole new game.
Well, they're not even really expansions. It's like basically you'll end up paying $50 to play the entire game. It just comes out in pieces.
Yeah, okay, so it's kind of like Stephen King's Green Mile. Hey, I bought those all individually. It was an experiment, but I figured I'd try it out.
I think we'll see episodic gaming in consoles.
The Xbox 360 could do it. If the PS3 online service is everything they're saying, then they could do it there too.
It probably won't happen for a while, though. I don't think they're going to push for anything like that.
I think the problem is that there's not all that much space on the hard drive. And, I mean, by the
It's
very
assuming you
nature
buy
of
a hard
these
drive.
things, they have to be. There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
There you go again with the hard drive.
That's why I'm saying it's probably not going to happen, just because they can't guarantee people have that availability. You know, they don't have that way to store, so...
My problem with it is the same problem I have with Half-Life 2 in general, actually, is that because this is all going through Steam, you're required to have an internet connection. And you never really own it. You're really all kind of leasing it through the service. And it doesn't give you the same ability to play the game later on. And one of the things that you were talking about before is, 15 years down the line, Steam disappears and no longer exists. You can't play these games anymore.
Yeah.
So, episodic content, I think with it, it's good for certain games, but I don't think I want to see where games in the future, it's all going to be episodic content, and there's no way to get a full game. They'll just release it in pieces because it's easier to work on that way, I guess.
I don't know. I bet after they release the whole thing, they'll probably, bundle it together in a collection you can buy all at once. And
it's just another way to milk more money out of it.
Well, and I think the thing that might help with it is that it'll allow more independent developers to actually be able to produce a AAA quality game, because by producing it in pieces, they don't have to get all the money together up front and do 4 years worth of development before they can do anything. If they can do it in pieces, they can get a little bit of money at a time and keep going with it.
And we just got to hope that they all work together. I mean, all the pieces, so to speak.
Depends on the developer.
Yeah.
Some are better than others. So, episodic gaming, probably won't see the end of it, but as far as consoles go, we'll probably see it more on like the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox, since those systems seem to be able to support episodic gaming a little bit more, but it's all going to fall to the developer and just how they implement it.
As you were mentioning about the hard drive, though, I mean, the PS3 does seem a better choice because from what we know now, the hard drive will be a standard component.
Moving on, we now have another topic that will probably piss us off a little. We're going to talk about in-game advertising.
Ooh. I don't know. I kind of blew my wad on the ESRB thing. I can't get all that worked up now.
So, my opinion on in-game advertising, unfortunately, it's just the way things are going to be. I mean, the costs for these games are becoming so astronomical that they have to make up their money somewhere.
And it's just as much realistic as it is in modern day, take, for example, Burnout. I mean, I think Burnout 3 had every possible EA game in there that was out at the time, PC to console, and I mean, so what? I mean, it's just like if you're driving down the street regularly, you see billboards advertising stuff. Is it really that much different? And is it really invading that much in the game?
But I think part of it with the in-game advertising is, okay, with some games it kind of makes sense. Like if you're playing like a sports game or a racing game, you're going to see a lot of car manufacturers and parts manufacturers because it fits within the scheme of the game.
Or
but then
Gatorade
you have a
or
game,
something.
You have like some first-person shooter, and then, you come across a sign and there's Stridex pads.
Yeah,
or,
well, obviously not appropriate. Yeah, I can agree to that. There should be some sort of level of, does this really apply to our game or the area of the game or what you're going to see?
I don't think companies really care as long as the check clears. I mean, they figure, okay, well, Ensight's going to give us
R&D
Ensight's going to give us $200,000 for their advertisement. We're going to put it on, these billboards for Barbie's Horse Adventure.
Well, that would be appropriate in a NASCAR game because I think they actually own one of the NASCARs. But I can't see that in a Barbie game.
Well, I'm just using.
Yeah, that's kind of an extreme thing. I don't think kids are going to have to worry about Ensight. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I can agree too.
If it really got that bad, I mean, hell, if I was going through God of War 2, and it had a feminine hygiene ad, in the middle of one of the hallways, that would be totally out of place. But when we're talking about some FPS in a war-torn country, and there's some shattered billboard over by the side, I don't care what the fuck's in there. It doesn't bother me. I mean,
do we even pay attention to them, or we've just so into the game that it just doesn't really matter?
I think we
more
have a
often
lot
than
of
not.
practice at ignoring advertisements at this point.
Yeah.
For anybody out there that gets email.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that bothers me about this is we had the bit with SWAT when they stuck in-game advertisements in there, where it was actually reporting back statistics about how and when people were looking at the advertisements.
Yeah.
And that kind of privacy reporting stuff actually bothers me. The advertisements being there, I couldn't actually.
Well, aren't they doing that now with advertisements online? They're just seeing, when the peak times are, who's seeing them. Stuff like that.
There's how many people are getting served out to. Except it was worse in the FPS stuff because they were actually tracking things like how often the player literally was looking at the thing in the game. When they were pointed at the advertisement.
But was that the actual game company that did that, or was that okay? But
that was actually built into the game code to do that.
They got to report who's looking at the ad, though, in order to generate revenue. I mean, that's kind of
different to me.
Well, it's just
than
like
saying,
clicking
how
on
many
a
people
link.
are in the same world. How many computers have we uploaded this picture to? And that's actually
There's
going
a little Big
intrusive
Brother,
there.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be impressed in the day when you're playing some FPS and you can see actual stock market, market prices or CNN news up on a billboard as you're running by,
But the whole point of playing games is to get away from reality.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I don't want to have to.
But see, that's the
Legend
paradox.
of Zelda and McDonald's.
Well, in some games that's the paradox, though. You're playing a game to get away from your daily life, and here you are playing some super uber realistic FPS in some war-torn country or some Rainbow Six version, and it's made to be as realistic as possible. You're going to see stuff that you see, or that you would expect to see in real life.
Do you think that's an aspect of making games more realistic? Is that we need to
I
now
think
add
some
these
things
to
well,
make them
For
more
some
realistic?
genres, it works.
Yeah, for some genres specifically, like an FPS or like a racing game or like a football game,
Yeah, I mean, seriously, what are most sports games other than advertising placards these days?
Yeah, you see them everywhere. I mean, they even have those little rotating ones on basketball courts where it's on like some 50-foot roll. and it's like 15 feet long, and it literally just scrolls up every 10 seconds. You see a new ad scroll
are those
up.
even real advertisements, or are those digitally adding that in later on the broadcast?
It looks like they're real to me, but I can't tell. I mean, I don't go to enough basketball games, to be honest with you. I think I've been to one in the last 10 years, but the fact is, though, I mean, that's if there's space for it, they'll put it there. That's
seriously, we're talking about like real basketball, and they're digitally adding ads in.
Yeah. but the point is that, I mean, we're never going to see the end of in-game advertising, and I think a large part of it it's gotten so expensive to do anything in games now, especially with bandwidth and server costs and just development, that it's almost become a necessary evil, because I don't think they're making enough money just on people buying the software to pay for all this stuff.
Let me put it simply.
Well,
it won't bother me until it physically interferes with the game in some way. Meaning, I'm like playing a basketball player, and I see an ad scrolling on his forearm or something. Something that literally interferes with my enjoyment of the game.
You think it's going to be more intrusive? Like, for example, even 5 years from now, where it's going to get to the point where it's like, before you play this game, you have to watch this ad and then answer a question about this ad before we'll open up the game.
I don't think so.
No,
I think it's just going to become like the movie industry right now. And it's like,
which is why people don't go to the movies.
Well, no, I don't mean for the ads in front of the movies. I mean all the product placement stuff inside the movies.
Okay.
I mean, right now, a popular movie, there will be many companies paying to have their product just appear in the film.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many movies I've seen with an iMac or an Apple computer sitting there because it looks so cool, and they wanted to have the computer that looked cool. Even though I'm not a big Mac person, but hey, it's just
best
product
to
placement.
Empathize with characters on a movie screen by giving them electronics normal people can't afford.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, they'll be eating Cheez-Its or something. I mean,
it's just a
it
status
doesn't like
placement,
it destroys the movie or takes you out of it or anything. It's just they're going to be using a product there. And they might as well make money off of it rather than having generic
And the thing is that
Cracker
this
Box
is
or
not a
something.
new thing. This has been going on since the PlayStation, and probably even before that, because there were a few Psygnosis games that came out that had one sponsor. Like, for example, what was it, Wipeout 3 or Wipeout XL?
Yeah.
And it was Red Bull.
Yeah.
Or what was it? It was a version of it was Lemmings 3D, and it was sponsored by Jelly Belly. In fact, when you loaded up the game, it had a big Jelly Belly logo before the game would even start.
Yeah. So I mean, we've obviously survived through that, and Lemmings 3D
and it didn't
was still a
interfere
cool
with the game, so be it.
And as long as it doesn't interfere, we're okay with it. But
like I said, as long as I'm not playing, my Greek action hero and having to walk past a maxi pad ad, I'm okay with it.
Well, it shouldn't belong in that game at all. That's the line there.
Okay. Our next game topic is another fucking DMCA rewrite. And for those who don't know what the DMCA is, it is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And basically, to put it in layman's terms, it's a bunch of laws and regulations concerning digital media. And in this case, there's a rewrite coming up for the DMCA. John, do you want to elaborate more on this?
And should emphasize this is currently being written in committee, so it's pretty far away from actually becoming a law. But just the fact that they're even thinking about it. I think the acronym for this one is the IPPA. But already the DMCA is broken, and even a lot of lawmakers know it's broken. So it's fairly frustrating that they're currently working on making the law even worse. One of the things that is proposed for this rewrite that's particularly offensive is that it would allow for asset forfeiture law to be applied towards basically pirating intellectual property of any kind. So, for instance, you copy a song on your computer, the police have the right to seize your computer because it was used in the commission of the crime. One of the places I think that's particularly annoying for us is in a console gaming scope is that if you mod your gaming system to be able to play region-free games, that's a violation of the DMCA and would say allow the police to seize your console because it allows you to...
Over my cold, dead hands.
Well, because it allows you to steal games.
Yeah.
And law is not my best subject, but say, for example, you put a mod chip in your system and it allows you to play import games because you decide, hey, I don't want to wait 6 months for this game to come out. You put a mod chip in and then you buy legitimate import games. You don't buy pirated software or anything like that. The understanding is that regardless of whether you're buying things legally or not, they can still seize your system just for the simple fact that you're circumventing their internal
their
infrastructure.
copy protection system.
Yeah, this is going a little too far.
It already went too far.
Yeah, but it's got to stop somewhere. Write your congressman.
Please.
Stock him.
So, do you think this is going to be a real blow to a lot of people that want to play legitimate stuff on consoles? Because the thing is, a lot of just normal gamers, the ones that play Halo and Madden all the time, aren't going to care.
This is true. But really, what these laws are trying to do, what the music and movie industry lobbyists are trying to do is destroy fair use. They really want to make it so that if you want to watch a movie on your television, you want to watch a movie on the go, you want to get a ringtone for your phone, that they want to make sure you pay every time for each of those things, even though fair use law would give you the right to be able to
move that media
around and do different things with it. They want to be able to lock it down so that you can't do that. And
that's just
seriously,
stupid.
Man, I don't want a
times do you have to
future
pay?
where you have to pay 5 times for the same thing.
You're going to be freaking broke, or you're just not going to be entertained
and buying any of that or whatever. But it sucks.
It's stupid, and it will be blown out of proportion, and it will be abused, just like everything else they've done. So,
now we've talked about just with the game console and modding it. Do you think there'll be other things that might happen as far as DMCA is concerned with consoles besides just modifying your system? Like, say, for example, would this cover people who make, their own type of cabinet or controller for a system? Is this going to cover?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
It's not that kind of modding. It's because it's specifically when you're circumventing their copy protection technologies, which is what the mod chip stuff does. Mm. So, although there is also some interesting bits in there, for copying your music over to the console, and whether or not they'll try and lock that down. I'm sure the game console manufacturers don't want to, but I bet the music industry would really like you to have to pay money to listen to your music in a game.
There we go. Our last game topic before we go into our game reviews is we want to talk about the end of G4 and why we can't get a decent video game network. Now, for those who may not be familiar with what's going on, let me give some background on this. Some time ago, Comcast created a television station known as G4, and it was mainly a video games-based network. And as the years went on, they bought one of their rival stations, Tech TV, and then they became G4 Tech TV. Well, what happened was that they got rid of 90% of the shows, kept a few of them, became G4 Tech TV, and then after that just became G4, got rid of the majority of their video gaming shows and turned into a Spike Television wannabe, a network for men type of thing, and now the conversion is pretty much complete.
They have been assimilated.
There's only very few video game content on G4 anymore, and 99% of the network is all male-oriented programs.
And the timing slots have sucked, too. They've moved all the gaming stuff to, 10 to 2, I mean, it's the time nobody's home to even watch that stuff. It's obvious they're trying to completely wipe it out.
So
And how many times do we got to see? I'm a fan of Star Trek, but how many times do we got to see it over and over on another
or the
station?
Star Trek 2.0 bullshit.
What's
It's just a joke.
squeezing blood out of a stone?
So why can't we get a decent video game network? Are we just not ready for it, or just they? I mean, my personal opinion is, the guy that runs G4 wanted to shift the focus from a video game network over to a male-oriented network, but why did he even decide to do that when there's already male-oriented networks out there already?
Yeah,
I'd expect his decision was based on ratings.
Yeah, money.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you expect a business to work off of.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Is it's just a business. It's not about love for what it was.
Well, even if we get a video gaming network too, though, isn't it going to be for the Madden crowd?
Well, that's true, but why can't we get, say a game and technology network all our own? I mean, is it that hard to make something that would interest video game people and people who are interested in technology? Is it that hard to make something like that profitable?
It might be that whole thing about young males don't watch television anymore. That target market is not watching.
Yeah.
We're on the internet.
Yeah, we're playing games. We're in MMORPGs and...
Yeah, I mean, I think the statistics for that is like the 18 to 30 male demographic has just disappeared off the ratings boards.
And the few that are still watching are watching things, unfortunately, like Spike TV, and a great channel, but I mean, they're watching that kind of format, and they're just,
So G4 figured, well, if it works for these people, let's just do this, because either we're not making money, or this doesn't interest the type of people that we want brought in, and we're going to go ahead and change our format.
Yeah.
And the revolution will not be televised. It'll be on the internet.
Yeah, it'll be interactive through blogs and gaming journalism, and
So basically, the only way to have a successful game network would be to put it online.
yeah,
Makes sense to me. And seriously, the only G4 Tech TV shows I have seen are the ones I've downloaded off their website.
it's really moving to the format of podcasts and video downloads. People are moving to iPod video. I mean, it's so much easier to do that and take it on the go.
We talked about the people who we call the Madden and Halo crowd, which
So
aren't really
even
interested
them,
in
they
getting
still aren't watching
podcasts or anything.
television.
Yeah, but they're not. I don't think some of them are computer savvy enough to even deal with podcasts or anything like that. They don't care as
How
long as they're
hard
getting
is
their...
a podcast, man? I mean, iTunes has made this dirt simple.
Well, that's true.
In the crowd you're talking about, if they do watch TV, they're probably just watching sports.
No, and I mean, we're talking about the 18 to 30 male demographic here when we're talking about this, and I mean, those are the same people that grew up with technology, and even if they, might not have it as their career, though a lot of them do, there are still people that grew up with it. They're comfortable with it. These aren't people that look at a computer like it's some kind of tool of Satan. No, it's where they get their porn.
Yeah. Even though it is a tool of Satan. So. Now we're going to go into our game reviews, and we only have one new game review this week. And
We're kicking it old school.
Yes, we are kicking it real old school. But our first game review is for a newer game, and I'm going to be talking about Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Now, before I begin, I must have a nerd moment in front of the microphone, so bear with me for just 1 second.
Is this going to be full frontal nerdity?
Yes. Objection! Okay, that was what I wanted to do.
He did the pose, too. In
Yes,
case
Overruled.
I did the pose. I am such a nerd.
You're in contempt of court.
Yeah. So, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney is on the Nintendo DS, and it's created by our good friends at Capcom. Now, the game revolves around new attorney Phoenix Wright, and it plays pretty much like an interactive book, and it's very heavily text-based. And I guess the best way to describe it is if you remember the old text-adventure NES games like Shadowgate, it's going to be kind of like that.
As it's kind of like any Japanese dating sim ever made.
Yeah. Now, as you play as Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, the first story that you'll go into is actually just more of a training mission. So you'll start off with your friend has been framed for a murder, and he says that he didn't commit it. And, of course, your friend's like the unluckiest guy in the world. And he's like, you got to help me, man. You got to help me. So you decide to take the case on. Now, it plays a lot. The way it plays is that as you learn what the case is, you're then given free rein to wander around the city and the scene of the crime and find whatever evidence that you can in order to support your case. And by paying attention to what people say and what is on the evidence, you build your case. And as you build your case, once you have everything that you think you need, you're ready to go to trial. Now, the first thing in this game is that there's, like I said, there's a lot of reading and there's a lot of being able to pay attention to things and paying real close attention to the details. As they always say, the devil's in the details. So, for example, you'll see like a clock and it won't have any batteries. Well, that's important to remember because that's one of the things that you can use in order to defend your client. Another thing is that you'll notice, the autopsy report, you can see what's going on and see if the plaintiff is lying or if the defendant is saying something that they shouldn't be saying. And it's really a lot of fun, but you've got to pay a lot of attention, and a lot of it's just a lot of just clue gathering and going back and forth and talking to the right people and trying to get the right bits of information to try and build a successful case.
So not quite a Harvey Birdman.
No, this guy's actually adept. Now,
so good choice for people who did well on the reading comprehension section.
Exactly. Now, one thing about the game is that when you start the first story, it'll actually just go through a nice tutorial. It'll say, okay, well, this is the evidence. This is what you need to do. This is how you present it to the court. These are the things that you need to remember. One of the things in the game, other than presenting evidence to the judge in the court, is that you can actually pressure the witness, and it doesn't count against you. So you can actually say, wait, say that again, or didn't you say this, or didn't you say that?
You can't like tilt like in a pinball game, can you?
No.
Okay.
But you can pressure them and kind of
nudge.
if you don't have any real hard evidence, you can kind of nudge them into saying something that they shouldn't have said beforehand. Now, as you go through the game and you have your evidence and you go to trial and you start cross-examining witnesses, they'll start saying whatever their statement is. And anytime during the statement you feel that something is wrong or out of place, you can either press them, kind of prod them into saying something that they shouldn't say to revise their testimony, or you can present evidence. Now, this is the key to the game. You are given a life bar of 5 hearts. And as you present evidence, if you present the wrong type of evidence or accuse the wrong person or do something that is incorrect to the game's flow, you'll actually be penalized and lose a heart.
So it's like a confidence meter.
Yeah. So if you lose all your hearts, the game is over. So you have to be real careful about what you say and how you say it. And not only that, check your facts. Make sure that you are saying exactly what you're saying. The nice thing about the game, though, is that they give you a lot of opportunities to go over the evidence, go over the case dossier, to go over just everything that you need before the trial. And even during the trial, you can take a pause, go into your evidence menu, look through all the testimony, and just see what's aspired, right, and make sure that you're making the right decision.
Like any good lawyer would do. It sounds like it's almost 2 parts technical, 1 part instinctual.
Exactly. Yeah, and it is a real fun game. It's got a very interesting storyline. I mean, not much animation. It's pretty much just still screens and just, doing a lot of searching. But with the DS, it uses the touch menu. And, for example, say you come across the scene of the murder. You can actually move your stylus and examine various parts of the murder scene, and sometimes you can pick up clues. Also, if there's people there, you can click on them and talk to them. It's also a way to present evidence to the court and move around in levels, go and discover more evidence or whatever that you need to do your case. Now, that's pretty much the way the game works up until the 5th episode. And in the 5th episode, you actually do a lot of CSI work, where you're doing a lot of the forensic side of it, like dusting for fingerprints, spraying luminol around like it's Glade air freshener, basic stuff like that, which makes it kind of interesting, but not very accurate. One thing that they do mention in the game, and this is actually in the instruction booklet, that it is not based on any type of law. It's not based off any Japanese law or any American law. It's just based off generic law. So any of the techniques you learn in Phoenix Wright, you probably shouldn't use in real court cases. Now, one thing that the game does is that it does have voice recognition. So if you don't feel like just pressing the hold it button or the objection button, whenever you want to object, you can actually yell out objection or hold it. So you can turn on the voice synthesis and be a complete idiot in front of your friends, and while you're playing Phoenix Wright, you can go, objection! And it'll actually recognize it, and then the judge will be like, okay, what's your problem?
I'm glad they didn't make that required.
No, it's actually not a requirement. It's completely optional. So in the end, I'm going to have to give Phoenix Wright a 4 out of 5. Very enjoyable game, great story, and very well translated. No spelling mistakes as far as I found. And
definitely not a Neo Geo game.
No, and it has a real interesting storyline, and the characters are very likable. The character Phoenix Wright is an incredibly likable character because he's not perfect. He's actually kind of a doofus. He'll say something and then you'll see sweat drops. He's like, oh, what did I do that for? And just a real interesting game. And it is sold out pretty much everywhere so far, but there's good reason for it. It's a very fun game. So if you like old-style text adventures with some exploring and a lot of deductive puzzle solving and reasoning, I would pick up Phoenix Wright.
Just to clarify, too, it sounds pretty linear. Does it have any replay, or is it just going to be exactly the same every time through? Well,
it's going to be to a certain extent, it's going to be exactly the same the way through, depending on how you do the game, because there are actually different paths that you can take. So there are going to be some points in the game where you're going to have to make a decision, and you're going to have, a choice of 3, and depending on your decision, you'll go to different places. So you can play different levels in different ways,
routes, yeah.
But the end result's going to be pretty much the same if you know the case ahead of time. But it's still an enjoyable game.
Yeah.
So next we have our classic game reviews, and Brian is going to talk about Puzzle Bobble Mini.
Yeah, Puzzle Bobble Mini. This is for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. I just recently got my hands on this finally, and it's everything that Taito is always done well. I mean, it's kind of Taito's version of Tetris, and it's a classic game that's always been good on pretty much every console. And granted, it's pretty much the same on every console, but having it in a mini format's kind of fun. And you can't beat portability. I mean, that's always a good plus. This is the Puzzle Bobble. This is no different than the Puzzle Bobble, basically, that came out in the Neo Geo arcade, the one you played, and you were this little dinosaur that was shooting these little marbles, pretty much these little bobbles or bubbles up in the air and matching 3 of the same color to try and get to the top before the top came down on you. Basically a simple puzzle game, and you just move this little arrow that points at about 180 degrees from left to right. But it's so simple yet so addictive, and it captures people of all ages. I've seen tons of people playing these games at the local arcade, and it just didn't matter. They once they played it and they got the hang of it, it was just something that you just kept playing. You loved to play, and it's no different for Puzzle Bobble Mini. And as it says, it's just a mini version basically. It has all the simple basic options, like survival, puzzle mode. It does have a versus CPU. I didn't notice a versus another player on there. But I did go through the options, and there was kind of an odd option in there that I don't think I've noticed in many other Pocket games, which was an auto shut-off. After a certain period of time, if for some reason you left it, it would auto shut off the system. And I thought that was kind of unique and kind of strange at the same time. But it's a highly addictive game. And to prove that point, I recently took a trip with some family, and my mom on the way back looked kind of bored. And while we're sitting at the airport, I gave her this and explained basically what you had to do. And she played it and literally was hooked. Hooked to the point that we got on the plane and she asked me if she could play it again, and literally played it, I think, the full hour and 15 minutes we were on the plane until the stewardess asked her to put it away so that we could land the plane. So, I mean, it's definitely a fun game. It's the standard puzzle fare, and if you've played it on any of the arcades, it's going to be no different. But I'd give it at least a 3.5 out of 5, just because it's basic puzzle gaming, and not everybody's into puzzle gaming, but it's great for what it is. Nothing really innovative, but just another good port, and a portable port at that, of a great game.
Okay.
We should add that the game is known as Bust-A-Move here in the U.S.
Yes.
True. Yeah, this actually was the European version, the UK edition, so it was named after the Japanese version. But yeah, these are all named Bust-A-Move in the U.S. True. Good point.
Okay. So next classic game review, John is going to talk about Out of This World.
Out of This World, we've mentioned before when we were talking about art in video games. And I love this game because I still think it is one of the best examples, if not the best example, of cinematic gameplay. Originally released in Europe as Another World, it was ported over here and got renamed to Out of This World. Well, being a PC game, it's also been ported to almost every other platform in existence at the time. Mentioning it now for a very special reason, though. The original developer has actually recently, within the last month, released a new version of the game. He went back and redid the backgrounds and improved the resolution of everything, and is releasing it as a dirt cheap shareware title over the internet. So if you haven't played this one, this is actually a good opportunity. Let me tell you why you want to play this game. It is a combination of a platformer and an adventure game and mini games, but it's done so seamlessly that you'll transition between doing different kinds of gameplay and trying to solve different types of puzzles, and they all fit together and fit into a narrative that goes through the entire game. Even though there's no dialogue, there's still this interesting story and these tense moments, and by the time you get to the end, you actually care about these characters and what's happened to them and what's going to happen.
So the game actually tells a story through its gameplay.
It does. And through these, what would be cutscenes in other games are actually interactive here, even though they still look like cutscenes. One of the things that has made it age very well, too, is it uses vector graphics throughout. They used rotoscoping to go ahead and take footage of real actors and real objects and turn them into vector graphics in the game. And it gives it an interesting style, and it all animates very well. And it still looks good today. It looks good in its own style, but it looks good. The controls are very simple. There's, really a D-pad and 2 buttons that you have to worry about. And this is one of the classics of gaming. If you haven't played this game, you really are missing out. And I can't think of anything else that has even taken the same idea in modern days and done as good a job of it. There were some later games like Flashback, but they didn't capture the magic of the first one, I think. So this is a great opportunity to go back and give it a try. And this is a game that seriously, it's an important game. It's a good game. It's got to be a 5 out of 5. It has an important place in history.
Okay. So, and I have played Out of This World. I actually played it back on the Super Nintendo. Although it is a real pretty game, I could never get very far in the game because just for whatever reason, those types of games like Flashback and Out of This World, I do really poorly at for whatever reason. It's like
Abe's Odyssey.
Abe's Odyssey, The Neverhood, games like that. Never really did real well in them. But it is a good game. I will agree with you there.
Well, and this would actually be an interesting one for somebody to put a video up of beating the game, because it really is an interesting one even just to watch. And if you know what you're doing, you can actually do it pretty fast.
Cool.
Give it time.
Yeah. All right. Well, our last classic game review is I will be doing a review on EARTHBOUND, otherwise known as Mother 2. Anyway, before I go into this review, I need to discuss a little bit about the history of Mother. Now, a couple of podcasts ago, I discussed that Mother 3 had come out. And the creator of Mother is by the guy named Itoy. And his studio created Mother, Mother 2, and Mother 3. And Mother 2 was released in the United States as EARTHBOUND. Now, the story of EARTHBOUND is actually kind of a strange one. You play as Ness, that's N-E-S-S, and he's fast asleep, and a meteor crashes outside, and he wakes up in his pajamas, and he talks to his sister, and he talks to his mom, and his mom's like, hey, something else went out, something happened outside, but you're going to check, aren't you? And, of course, being the young hero of the game, you do. And, of course, as your mom, she says, okay, well, before you go out, make sure you put on some clothes. I don't want you walking around in your jammies. So as you walked through the starting level, you'll notice that the asteroid is very strange. And you come across one of your so-called friends by the name of Pokey. And as you see Pokey, you basically take him home and then you go back to bed. Well, what happens is that Pokey will knock at the door several hours later, and you end up checking the meteor again, and a B-E-E, comes out of the meteor and is
not a Wii?
No, a B.
Okay.
And he describes himself as Buzz, and he comes from 10 years in the future and tells you that the Earth will be destroyed unless you destroy the great evil Gygus. And the way you do that is to gather up the 8 sound stones in order to go in and defeat him. Now, having a bee being the savior of the universe is kind of strange, and there's lots of strange and bizarre creatures. And Buzz is actually a very powerful companion as you go through one of the first boss fights in the game. And then 5 seconds later, you take Pokey back to his house. Pokey's mom sees a bee flying around you and swats him and kills the legendary hero of the universe with a newspaper. So kind of an anticlimactic end there. But that pretty much starts your adventure through EARTHBOUND. So as you go through the game, you'll get
Fifth Element.
As you go through the game, you'll come across 4 more friends. You'll come across Paula, a young girl. You'll come across Jeff, who is in a boarding school in a winter wonderland called Winters, and the prince of a far-off land of Dalam called Poo, P-O-O. And these 4 companions will actually go with you and defeat the evil Gygus. Now, the game itself is strange. There's no way to describe it, and I don't think there's any words that I can really say to describe what the game looks like. The game looks like a child's drawing, but graphics aside, it's actually a very well-done graphical game, even though it doesn't have a real modern style, the almost childlike drawing of it gives it a great appeal. Not only that, but the music is very appropriate, very strange, bizarre tracks, and the storyline is just way out there.
And it's Japanese, so it's wacky and kooky, and we think you're going to like it.
Even though it's Japanese, the whole Mother universe is taking place as if it's in normal America, like America 1960s. I mean, the main character has a baseball cap and uses a bat as a weapon in the game, or he can get a yo-yo.
Does he have inline skates, too?
No. But, like, for example, say you need a shield. Well, in the game, there's no shields, so you use a stuffed teddy bear as a shield. Or,
I was thinking more of trash can lid, but...
Jeff uses weapons. So, for example, Jeff can use bottle rockets. And he can create devices out of trash. And actually, Jeff comes equipped with a protractor and a ruler, of which if you try to use them in battle, the battle screen will basically tell you that now you know how far away you are from the enemy, and that's pretty much it. And you get various healing items, and of course, it's all food-based, so you can get hamburgers and French fries and all sorts of nice, normal American foods, and not only that, but you can get condiments for your food. So you can get salt and pepper and ketchup and add condiments to the food and actually increase their healing properties.
So it's the Little Rascals versus the evil Gygus.
Yeah. and the game is just, I mean, the story is just real bizarre. But the big thing with the story is that there's a statue that you find very early in the game called the Mani Mani statue. And it's actually very evil, and it's creating a way for Gigas to actually enter the world. And when you come across the statue, weird things happen. And once you destroy the statue and get all the 8 sound stones, you actually have to go into the future to defeat Gigas. And I won't give away too much of the plot, but a lot of stuff happens around that time that's actually quite disturbing. And you go and fight Gigas. Now, this game has actually aged pretty well, and because the graphics aren't very complex, their simplicity actually adds a lot to the game. So, in the end, I'm going to have to give Earthbound Mother 2 a 5 out of 5. And the reason for it, even though the graphics aren't that great, it's the style of the graphics, the music is excellent, and not only that, but the storyline is probably one of the funniest storylines you'll ever read in an RPG. I mean, very humorous. A lot of it is just humor that's just way out in left field, and some of it will just hit you and you're just like, what was that? What the hell was that all about? And just real strange things. Like there's a real early in the game you'll come across something that's blocking your path, and it's a huge statue that's shaped like a pencil. And the only way that you can remove the statue that looks like a pencil is to get a pencil eraser. So as you go through the game, you find a pencil eraser, and there's a large lead statue that looks like a pencil. You can just erase and go on. So it's
either that or a pencil sharpener.
Yeah. Strangely enough, in the Japanese game, it's a statue of a large octopus, and you have to get some octopus eraser or something even stranger.
So there were some significant edits to the game when they translated it to the US?
Significant.
Well, it actually made more sense when they translated it, sounds like.
The only real significant changes that they made a couple changes to the names of the town. Like, for example, there's a town that you enter in the game that's known as Threed in this in the United States, and it's known as Threek in Japan. Not a big difference, but there's an area in the game called the Grateful Dead Valley, and they just changed the name just for fear of copyright violations. But other than that, there's not really, other than just some minor graphical, just some real minor graphical things. There's really not much that was changed in the game, other than some of the real eccentric Japanese humor that would be totally lost on American audience was changed to something that would be more understandable for an American audience. So a lot of references to things that only Japan would know about, they just changed, which if you don't know about it, not a big deal. So it's a great game, and I will force both of you to play it.
Is there any hope we'll ever see a compilation?
Well, Mother 1 and 2 was re-released on a Game Boy Advance cartridge. It's actually both games on one cartridge, and it was released in Japan, and it actually got re-released in Japan as like one of their value series. But as far as an American translation of the game, who knows? And the thing that gets me is like both games are translated into English, so putting it on a Game Boy Advance cartridge should not be that difficult. Game's already translated. Strangely enough, though, the Game Boy Advance compilation of Mother 1 and 2 is actually based off the American version of the game. So a lot of the glitches that were present in the Japanese version were mostly removed out of the Japanese version because they just basically just brought out, for whatever reason, they just used the American version of the ROM. So the edits that are in the American version actually show up in the redone Japanese version for whatever reason.
Huh. Interesting.
But I will force you to play it.
Well, and they're releasing Mother 3 right now, which we've talked about earlier, right?
Yes, it is out.
And so, I mean, it sounds like the perfect time for them to do a compilation.
Yeah, but of course, what you want is not always what you'll get. These are video games, so the thing that you want the most is the thing that you're never going to see.
Well, bummer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seriously considering importing Mother 3 because I doubt I'll ever see it in this country. But you never know. Anyway, that is it for this podcast. A reminder, a show note for Podcast 7. It takes place the day after E3, so more than likely we will be doing a post-E3 report. So is there anything else to add before we wrap it up?
It's a wrap.
We're done.
Okay. Well, let me do the ending spiel now. You have been listening to Diehard Gamer Radio. As always, you can listen to us at diehardgamerradio.com, or you may email us at diehardgamerradio@gmail.com. You can also listen to us through allpodcast.com and podcastalley.com. And please, if you do listen to us on Podcast Alley, please put a vote in for us, and we thank you very much for all your support. So from all of us here in Denver, you have once again been listening to three guys who know a lot about games and not much else.